In this video, we're going to have a look at how you can use some filters within WordPress to update your title, add some content, and style your content as well. And that just saves you having to access template files each time in order to do that. So what I'm going to do now is just show you, we have this basic layout. As you can see, not a great example. There isn't a lot of content, but I'm going to show you now what happens. Let's choose a different post. So I'm going to head over here. And let's just find something with a lot more text. This one looks like it has a lot more. And you'll see here that, there we go, that gives you an idea. So we have some text. We've styled the before and the after content, the main content, and then we've also styled elements within the content. And then just to show you how that would translate on in different themes. So at the moment, I'm here on the 2022 theme. So let me activate the Astra theme and we'll head over to the front end. And you'll see that we are now in the Astra theme, and you'll see that, we have some information, some styling, looks good. Some of these elements here are the wrong size. So I know that different themes behave differently. So I've already just created a changer so that we can eliminate those items on the right hand side that are the wrong size. And also, unfortunately, what I did is I made some other changes as well. So I need to just add them in here. Right, so now I can save that. And when I refresh, you'll see that that is correct. And then we have a whole lot of, so the layout is preserved basically. And so as I cycle through from theme to theme, let's try this Bloxy theme, head over to the website, refresh, then you'll see that, the same layout is basically preserved across all the different themes. And what's nice now is that I don't have to go looking for the classes for each of the themes because I've created my own. And that just means that whatever styles I've set are preserved. So to give you an idea here, if I have a look at the post title, you'll see that it is spanned here by this BY main title. If I look at the before content, you will see that it has this before content, which is also a BY before content. In fact, if we look at all the items within that main content, you'll see that they have my own classes. And if I edit the post, and I'm going to add an H2 heading to the post, let's add it in here. Heading this is a heading, and I'll add a quote, a new quote here, and then I'll just add some citation. Right, so I've added some of my own content there, and when I view the post, as soon as it's saved, then you'll see that those elements are also styled according to the style that I've set. So this is pretty much just by creating a function that filters the content and it then renders out different information. So another example here, for example, is we have the date and the category, but we also have it in the default theme elements. So to remove them from under the title, I'm going to head over here and I just need to check what category I'm in. So here we are in category 3. So here I check and I see post in category 3. And what I'm going to do is return a different set of data. And in this case, I'm just going to return the title on its own. I'm going to save those changes, head over to the website, and there we are. Also remove the title, so I didn't mean to do that. So let's just scroll down. Right, so let's just have a look here, what's going on. The category we're in is in category 3 or category 2. So here we are in category 3. We don't need that there. And right, and we return the title. That is correct. And we don't want to say return equals because it's just a return statement. So return, and it's also not a variable, it's just return. So we're just returning the title, and we'll save. And now there we have the title back. So yeah, that's pretty much then how you can include or exclude any information. Let's try this Big Bertha, or the works of Bertha. I call it Big Bertha because everything in the standard layout is so big. And there you can see we have our title. This is pretty much styled as it should be. And now I'm just going to make sure that we can pull in the title. So category 3 or category 2. So if I scroll down here and I see category 3, and we want to add in the category and the date. So I've already preset these. And now when the filter runs, it's going to include that information. So when it comes to using the filters, you can change some of the information or add information and change the format and the layout where it's output. So now this is looking a lot better. If I was to deactivate my function, save the changes, and head back here to Bertha, you'll see that save changes and deactivate. Then you'll see that this reverts then just back to the standard layout. Right, so no harm done, and it's always going to be visible. So unlike a plugin, you're not going to uninstall and lose the information. The formatting will change, and because we've added it via a filter, it's quite easy then to use it on pretty much any theme. So we have the function where we filter the elements, and then we have a CSS sheet, a very basic style sheet that is then applied to every single theme that we're using. So if I was to continue with this, I'm just going to then show you, what this looks like. So I think the first thing to look at is, let's just have a look at the CSS styles again. So, there we have the entry title, and we've wrapped the title then in a span tag. There we have the date, and you'll see they're all prefixed BY header date, BY header cats. Scroll down here, before the content, once again, BY before content. Then we have the main content, and then we have the after content. And inside the main content, you'll see that all the elements are referenced with one of my styles. So what we're basically doing with the filter is the data comes in. We then remove the information we don't want, or rather not remove, we replace it with our own styles, and then we output. And that means then that whatever theme I install, my styles remain. And if I do want to change the styles of this website, the nice thing is I just access my style sheet and I update it. And I don't have to spend time trying to work out what style is being used for which part. And then this theme, it's different, and that one's different. And eventually you end up with this massive style sheet, and you've got to keep managing what's new, what's old, what stays, what goes. With this, it doesn't matter. You can change the theme. Your post will largely remain intact, and then also we can include or exclude elements without having to now go in and edit the template files, which also saves a lot of time and energy. Right, so just to see how this is made up then, if I head over here to the function that I've created, and let me rather do it like this, then what you're going to see over here is we start off with our first filter, which is the underscore content. And of course, the name of the filter you'll recognize. If you were making a template to output the content, you would normally do something like that. So the filter name is the same as the underscore content, and the variable with its data that we're pulling in is called content, and that then is that's the main wrap. So if we look at the website, that's the main wrap. And that's this, that would be the area here that is in gray, right? So that's the main wrap. Then we have the before content, and we had the section which is after content. And basically all that we're doing here is we're adding a piece of content before and a piece of content after, and that's all we're doing to this content variable. And we're saying that if it doesn't meet these parameters, then just return the content in the same format that it came in. What we're also doing here is we're targeting a single post, making sure that it's not the product page. Now, the thing about the content variable and using the underscore content is that filter is that this would apply to, kind of any post. Now, products are basically a custom post type, and if we didn't exclude the product, then this would be applied to the main description that is added when you're working on products, which is that description right at the top. It's also considered to be part of the underscore content. So what we want to do is make sure that it doesn't apply to the product. And if you have custom posts, you might want to set this not to apply to the custom post, or maybe you do want this to apply to your custom post. Either way, this is where you can target where to apply the before and after text, so after content. So that's pretty much what we've done here. The next element that we need to look at then is the content. So how do we then target, making the H2 red, changing the quote layout, the spacing of the paragraphs. So any element then that is now going to be found within the main content, we can identify and we can change and replace and add our own class. And to do that, we're going to use the, you'll see here that we're going to access the underscore content filter again, but this time we're pulling in the variable called text underscore content. So this is the text content for this particular post. And what we're going to do now is use this str underscore r replace, and we're going to use that function then to replace the elements within this array called the text content. Once again, we're targeting the single and the page, and what we're saying is find these elements and replace them with these elements inside this array. So we're saying find these keys. So we're targeting the array key, which is this element here. And we're saying replace those array keys with the content, which is this, which are these elements here on the right hand side. And by doing that now, we're replacing the standard P class with our class, the H2 heading with ours, the ordered list with ours, the citation, which is part of the block quote, we're replacing with ours. And it's important to bring in the entire name as it is in its original form, which is like this, to replace. If you just brought in block quote, it wouldn't have the same, it wouldn't replace. What we're doing is we're looking for this specific value, and then we're going to replace it with this specific value. So that's why you need to be quite careful in selecting. So the best way to go about it is to look at the content in a standard WordPress theme and then make sure that you can identify the correct values and then do the replacement. Some of the themes might also do the replacement. So if you look at it through one of the standard themes and you do the find and replace, it may not work correctly. So just bear that in mind. And then once we're done, we return the text content, and that is then what goes on the site. So if we're doing it for content on the website that doesn't match these criteria, it'll just return the text content as it came in and apply. Because it meets this criteria, it's going to be updated, and this text content is going to be returned. So that's then pretty much how you're able to identify anything within the main content. Now, what I did find is that if there's a shortcode outputting information, then this particular method of identifying and outputting didn't work. So I did find that by using the standard blocks within WordPress when adding content, you could identify and make the change, but not for a plugin. So just to bear that in mind. Right, so that's how we can then identify the content and change anything that is then within that content with our own class. And then you just make your class as normal, and you can apply. The next thing to look at then was to look at the title. Now the title worked a little bit differently because the way that it's worked with different themes is slightly different. So also what happened here with the title is that some of the themes would include some of this meta information, some didn't. So you needed a way to turn it on and off. And so in order to do that, basically then, we're going to use a different filter here. So you'll see here that the filter we're using here is called the title. And you'll remember that if you were building a theme, you would normally use the title to output the title. So we're now going to use the filter, the title, and we're going to replace the information in the title with, well, we're going to filter it and adapt it to what we want. Now, you'll see here that in this case, we're bringing in two variables. The one is the title and the one is the ID. And so immediately we're going to go post equal get post ID to get the post ID. And now, because it's the title of an individual post, we're saying post if the post type is equal to post. If you have custom post types, this is where you would enter the custom post type or product. Then we're saying if it is single and if it's in a specific category, right? And this is the post ID inside this category and in the loop and not an archive. And I'll explain where this comes into play a bit later. So this ID, you could manually enter an ID here for a post, and then it would only apply to the post with that ID. In this case, though, it's any post ID within this category. So in the first section, or the first if statement, we checked for category 3, and then I did another one at the bottom here which checked for category 4. So if it's category 3, you have a lot of options. What I did here as well is I went and got the name of the categories and I got their link. So I then put that into an array. So that would be the link, the category name. And then what I do is I then implode those values separated by a comma. And that would mean that if a post has more than one category, it will then output them with a comma separator, and of course you can link through to the categories. If I wanted to change that separator, maybe I wanted to do something along those lines, simply doing that is fine, because now when we head over to the website and I refresh, you'll see now that we have a new separator. So that's how easy it would be to then to apply a different separator. So once I had the post category information, I was then able to start building up the return value. So in the value with all the bells and whistles, you'll see here that we have the title. I then, so the title is the first section here in this span, and then I returned the date, which I used the H5 title for. Didn't have to, but just as an example. And then lastly, I wrap the categories in a paragraph style. So that's what we did there. Now, one thing I need to point out about the title, and the reason why we use the span, is because you might say, well, hang on, it should be an H1. So if I was to output this as an H1 class, and we'll just change that to H1, we'll save that, and now I head over to the website and I refresh. What you're going to see now on the website is that we now have two H1 classes. So, and also the first H1 class is not showing the style that I have. So now when it comes to SEO and Google, maybe having two H1s is already not a good idea, and having an empty one is not a good idea. So the way we get around that, and the only way that I found to do that, and the best way to do that, is to rather wrap it in a span class. and not a div. A div seems to signify a different section, and inside a div you would expect to find an H1 title, whereas the span is normally used to wrap text. And so for Google to identify it as being part of the title, the span would be the more correct way of doing that. Right, so we have that. Then you'll see we output the date, and then we output the category. So that's pretty much then how we handle the title. The other thing here in the title then, for example, is I did say if it's in category 4, then just output the date, output the title and just dash and the date. Now, the reason why, well, the nice thing here is that the reason why we can target these categories then means that we can also start to target and change the styling for different categories. So if you had a category called announcements and you wanted to output the title and stuff in a different way, instead of having to go and edit the theme, you could literally come in here and make an edit here to output the header in a different way with a different class. And in a similar way, you could then maybe move up here, and with some of the content here, you could then style that in a different way. That would make it look different, and you can even do it here and say, if it was in the category, for example, announcement, then this content before could be announcement, and at the bottom might be announcement as well. So you can even change the before and after text then. So now instead of having to go into template files, you can manage a lot of the output from a central location. So that was how we did the title, and you'll wonder why I had all of these additional elements here, and I'm going to show you why. And that largely came down to the Astra theme. So if I activate the Astra theme and I head over, and now I'm just going to reset the screen size and we'll refresh. At the moment here, you'll see that the links are the correct size and they're not inheriting the styles from here. But what I did find, and what category are category 3. So what I did find is that if I didn't include those elements at the end, then some of the content, the links on the right hand side, would then inherit the same class and style as the main title. And that's what you see here. So if I right click and inspect, you will see that it's inherited that span, the main title. So to ensure that it's not selected, I found that if I was to add that to the if statement, it would then not target those. What I also then found is that for the 2022 theme from WordPress, I had to remove that and in the loop because that theme didn't like that particular statement. So there is a little bit of massaging sometimes depending on the theme that you're looking at. So that's pretty much then how you can then change how the items are output. And in this case, for example, we only want the date, we don't want the categories. So what I've done here in the layout is you'll see that I've created several statements, and that's then just because each theme already had a different preset. So in the first one, I have the return, which returns the title, the date, and the categories. In the second one, it just returns the date. So in this case, I only want to return the date. So it's just then a case of updating to the output that you want, and then we just have the date. So that's pretty much then how we can manipulate the date. And remember, you can put in any information that you want into that title area. Like here we just did for category 4, we just said output get the date. So you can either include the output wrapped in the title, as we did here, or you can separate it into separate pieces of information as we did, or as we do over here, where it's separated with its own style. So you really have a lot of freedom to mix and match the meta information that's here. So, and you could also create a similar layout to this if you wanted, with the styling. Yeah, that's pretty much what we did there. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how that works. Just one last thing then is that when we were looking at the 2020 theme, so let me head over to the 2020 theme, and we'll activate and we'll preview that. I don't think we've looked at that one yet. So we're looking at the 2020 theme, and what I noticed, and what I'm going to do now is just change what is output. So I was outputting the full set of information, and what I also discovered was that the 2020 theme also outputs its own information. So let me just comment that out. Right. And so what I found is that when it returned the information, it had a whole lot of its own categories and stuff. So it's not doing it now. Possibly, I'm not sure why. So the only way to then remove it was to target the that particular section on the website, and then to add a filter. And what I did is I just said return nothing for that filter. That's 2021. So the 2020 theme is this one here. So activate, and you'll see now that when I refresh, you'll see here that I output that, and this was outputting all of this information. So if I wanted to remove that, I would then access that filter, and I would just say return nothing. I wasn't sure what variable to pull in as well, so I just said return nothing, and let's head back here. What am I doing wrong? Right, well, I thought that's what I did to remove that. Let me just have a look here. So category 3, there we have category 4. This is category 3. Right, so I'm not sure. Okay, so that's not working the way that I thought. Okay, so basically then what you would need to do now is find a way to hide the elements that are there. And one way to do that is there's this Hooks Finder plugin. And basically, you can then select to show all the hooks on the website, and you'll see something like this, and it has all the hooks and filters available, and there are literally tons. And then it's a case of going through the post and looking for the content that you want. And in this case, looking for so we had the 2020 end of post meta list, and we had the start of the post meta list, and I also found the show categories in header. So right, so there we found, okay, so up at the header section we found the 2020 show categories in entry header, and so I try to target that filter to remove the categories. It's not always in the right sequence that you have, and so then by accessing these filters, you can then also target some of the areas on the website and make some changes. So it takes a bit of investigation to find out what needs to be updated and changed. As in this case, just adding the filter as it is not removing the element from the page, and I could have sworn that's what I had done earlier. But then by finding those hooks and doing a bit of digging, you'll be able to target those particular areas and then make the updates as required. So yeah, that's pretty much then, how you can target different pieces of content on the website, and then using filters, different outputs, and targeting using this, posts that are in a specific category, or targeting a specific post. You could have put a single post ID. You can then change the layout for any one of those posts. So yeah, well, it's a lot easier than updating the template files. And the other nice thing then is that the design is often then carried across to the different layouts that you create. So you don't have to keep hacking away at template files. So quite a useful tool to have in your arsenal. And because everything's included in one function, or maybe or in several functions, but maybe grouped together, it's then easy to manipulate and update in one place, as opposed to editing several theme files or messing with a whole lot of different CSS. Just one thing when it comes to CSS, in the new version of WordPress, there's no more customize button link in the new template. So that's why going for the separate CSS plugin is always a good idea. That way, when you move from theme to theme, you don't wipe out your customize information each time and then you have to re-input. It's there then as you move from one theme to a next. Great. Well, I hope you found that interesting, and you can go ahead now and start making your changes and updates to your own themes and layouts. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching.